How's it going, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Town of Salem. In this video, we will be creating a ranked roles tier list. The placements of each role will be based on their ability to carry and impact the game. If you enjoy the video, let me know, and I'll make more for other modes in the future. This one is purely based on ranked. Without further ado, let's jump right in. So, starting off with role number 1, we have the Ambusher. Ambusher goes straight into S tier, folks. Straight up, the strongest random mafia role in the game. Let me explain why. So, to understand why Ambusher belongs in S tier, we first must ask ourselves why Mafia do what they do. So what does Mafia primarily do in this game? They lie, they spread misinformation, they try to create chaos, and they try to cause mislynches. They try to survive. The reason why Mafia does this is so they can gain majority. Why does Mafia try to gain majority? Because once you gain voting power, you can do whatever you want. You can vote up the jailer. You can vote up anything. That's why Mafia tries to gain majority. Now, Ambusher, unlike other random Mafia roles which are based on deception to get the mislynch, so they can get closer to majority, straight up removes a townie from the game. Straight up gets you closer to that majority with no deception needed, no middleman needed, right? If we compare it to something like the Framer, what does the Framer try to do? The Framer tries to frame townies, hoping that the sheriff checks them so the townie can get mislynched so the Mafia can get closer to majority. What does the Ambusher do? Straight up kills a townie. Which one's stronger? Ambusher, right? And it's a lot stronger. So, for example, let's say night 1, Mafia kills off 1 townie. You got 8 townies left, you have 6 evils left. Then let's say on day 2, none of the town investigatives got lucky, they couldn't find any evils, and all of the Mafia survived without getting lynched. It's night 2. The Ambusher sits on someone that asks for a TP/lookout. Mafia kills off a townie. You killed off 2 townies on night 2, there was 1 already dead on night 1. You've killed off 3 townies, all Mafia have survived, all evils have survived. It is now a 6v6. Town has lost majority, they cannot do anything during the day unless the executioner sides with them, which they likely won't, and that is a nightmare scenario for Town. Ambusher can do this easily. That is why it is one of the strongest roles in the game. So definitely S tier. Next up we have the Bodyguard. Everyone loves the BG. BG goes into A tier, does not go any higher. And very straightforward answer as to why this is. The primary purpose of the Bodyguard as a town protective is to protect the high value important roles. It's trying to protect the roles in S tier and S plus tier. I believe it therefore cannot be here because it's trying to protect them. Obviously it can impact the game, it's a powerful role, however, it is not as strong as something like a Vigilante, for example. At maximum, if played correctly, you kill off 1 evil, you go down with them. A 1-for-1 always benefits Town, especially in the early game. Not always late game, but vast majority of times it does. And sometimes, with your dead corpse, a Retributionist can protect another townie, get a 2-for-1. Bodyguard is overall just great. We all love the role, we all love having a BG on our team. If they don't get themselves lynched, if they protect someone, we all love it. Sits in A tier solidly. So up next, we have the Blackmailer. So Blackmailer is a pretty average role. I would say it goes into B tier. Reason being is because it's not complete trash, like some random Mafia roles, but it's nothing like an Ambusher, for example, right? You're more so a information gathering role where you can listen in on the whispers and kind of, figure out who the town protects are. You can figure out who the Vigilante is potentially. Basically inform your Mafia to make better decisions. Sometimes you can blackmail people. The guy's going to spam vote, people are going to figure out that they're blackmailed or that they're faking it. Sometimes you can blackmail someone who's leading Town and maybe get an advantage that way. Average role, pretty straightforward. So up next, we have the Escort. So I would say Escort also in B tier. It's a pretty average role. Reason being is because early game you can't really do much. Especially on night 1, night 2, you're really not going to be doing much in the game. You're going to rollblock the TP/lookout request on night 1 to confirm yourself, and then night 2, if the Mafioso or GF isn't dead, you really don't want to be rollblocking anyone because you're probably going to rollblock a town protect or a town investigative, If the GF is dead, you become a lot stronger. I would say you go into A tier, but vast majority of the times you'll be in B tier. Escort also comes in handy if the town killing is a vigilante, they've been outed, and the witch is still alive. So that's why when vigilantes get outed, they say escort on me, so the witch can't kill off townies with the vig. I would say sits in B tier, pretty average role. It is nice to have on occasion. So up next, we have the Forger. Now, back in the day, Forger was complete trash. I would say it was either C or D tier, but after the buffs, it definitely goes into A tier. Having a Forger is great. It does get countered by Spy, or half of its ability gets countered by Spy. A Spy can figure out whether or not someone was potentially forged and stop town from being misinformed that way. However, the Forger still does remove a townie's role from the game. So town won't know what that person's role is unless there's a medium involved or if someone's figured it out on their own. Forger is very strong. It's not as strong as a ambusher, for example. However, it does sit solidly in A tier because it's stronger than a freaking blackmailer. With the misinformation you can create with a Forger, you can pretty easily cause a mislynch and get closer to gaining that majority. So up next, we have Doctor. Now, Doctor, another town protective role, sits behind Bodyguard. Definitely not as strong as the BG, but it's still very powerful. The reason why Bodyguard, in most cases, I would say 99% of the time is better than the Doctor is because, number one, the Doctor cannot protect a revealed mayor, which in many cases is very important. Number two, Bodyguard straight up removes someone from the game. Doctor does not do that. Doctor simply buys more time for town. Also, if the Doctor dies and the Retributionist tries to use their dead corpse, they can protect the townie, but unlike the dead BG, they're not going to remove the Mafia from the game. So it's very powerful. You can protect the Jailer, you can protect a bunch of different roles, you can buy town a lot of time. However, it's not as quick and clean and straightforward as the Bodyguard. It's not as strong as the Bodyguard, objectively speaking, the vast majority of the time. Up next, we have the Framer. So Framer is pretty trash. It's a pretty trash role. I debated whether or not it belongs in D tier or C tier. Honestly, either one could be argued. Everyone knows it's trash. I would say it belongs in D tier, but we could give it C tier, but it would be the very bottom of C tier. As a Framer, if there's a spy in the game, you are 100% counted. Do not go around framing people. If there's a spy in the game, all you're going to do is confirm that those people are not Mafia roles, vast majority of the time. Essentially, you're going to be put on town protect duty where you're just going to sit on the Jailer or the TP lookout request, pretend to be a town protect. If you get checked by an investigator, you come up as Framer, Vampire, Jest, you're basically screwed. If it's not a spy game, you can move around and do things, but you're really not going to be impacting much. Sometimes you might get lucky and frame someone that the sheriff checks or that the invest checks, but vast majority of the time, you're really not going to be achieving anything. I've played 100 ranked games this season. I don't think I've seen the Framer succeed once with their ability. In most cases, they just go on the Jailer or the TP lookout request and they pretend to be a doctor. I would say pretty trash. That's essentially all they do. So up next, we have the Consig. Consig is very powerful. It's stronger than Blackmailer for sure. I would say it's still B tier, but it's further up in B tier. So Consig, similarly to the Blackmailer, is an information gathering role primarily. So if it's not a spy game, the Consig is pretty damn powerful. You can fake claim investigator and pretty much go around checking people, posting it during the day. People are going to think you're an invest. You're probably not going to be found, right? If it is a spy game, on the other hand, usually the Consig gets pretty counted. You can't claim investigator freely. You probably want to claim something else. Otherwise, they'll figure out what you are. We can't say it's as strong as a Forger. It's more so an information gathering role so Mafia can make better informed decisions, but you can't really fool town with it as well as a Forger can. You don't brute force kills like an ambusher can. However, you're not as trash as a Framer. I would say B tier, but stronger than Blackmailer in most scenarios. So up next, we have the Godfather. So Godfather sits right here, I would say, in front of Blackmailer, behind Consig. The role is a necessity, right? You need your Godfather alive. The longer you'll keep your GF alive, the better it is. Why? If the GF dies, then you lose one of your Mafia killings. If your Mafia get role blocked, and they can't kill anymore, you essentially lose the game. Now, the GF is always strong because, unlike the Mafioso, it's immune. It's actually the only immune Mafia role in the game. So if you attract the attention of the Vigilantes on a crucial night, they shoot you, you kill off a townie, they think they were going to save the game. However, because you're immune, you don't end up dying. Town loses majority, let's say. GF is very powerful. Keep your GFs alive. Definitely sits in B tier. It's not trash, but it's not great. It's not trash. It's B tier. So up next, we have the consort. So, consort, straight into S tier. I think we can all agree. Reason why consort belongs in S tier is because you can role block the jailer, prevent them from executing. You can role block the vigilante, prevent them from shooting. You can prevent the town protects from protecting. You can do a lot of things with this role. It's a very powerful, brute force, no-nonsense role. It's not as strong as the ambusher, but it definitely is stronger than a forger. I would say it sits in S tier. It's one of the main reasons that jailer just can't claim day one freely. If it's a consort game, Mafia can just claim jailer themselves, and town is not going to lynch you because they're going to say real jailer execute the fake jailer. The consort's just going to role block the jailer from executing. Mafia is slowly going to gain majority. So, consort, very powerful role, definitely sits in S tier. Now up next we have the vigilante. Now vigilante, very, very, very powerful role, we can all agree. You can solo lose the game as a vigilante. You can, however, solo win the game as a vigilante. Vigilante has 3 bullets to kill off 3 evils. If you kill off random Mafia and the Mafioso, you can win the game essentially, right? You can shoot someone who's immune, inform town that they're immune. A vigilante who's able to use all 3 of their bullets to kill off 3 evils, the vast majority of the times will win the game just on their own. Now, it's extremely powerful. It does have its drawbacks though. If you shoot an immune, you lose that bullet, you can't kill immunes, and you can also be witched. So, you can be the greatest vigilante player in the world, however, if you fall victim to the witch, it's essentially over for you. Role sits in S tier. So up next we have the hypnotist. So, hypnotist is complete trash, belongs in D tier, probably even worse than framer. As the hypnotist, the vast majority of times you don't even want to be using your ability on night 1 because it's so bad. It is so bad because if you take the gamble and you try to use one of your abilities on a townie and the spy sees that that townie's been visited, they're just going to say, oh, it's a hypno game. They now know what one of the random Mafia is, so it's going to make their job easier. They're going to figure you out. Unlike the framer who can claim town protect by going on the jailer silently, you can't even really do that as the hypno. You can try to go on the TP lookout request and role block them, then claim town protect. It's just not as good. I would say hypnotist trash tier. And if it's not trash tier, it's definitely below framer, I would say. Because unlike doing stuff incognito, you're probably going to be found out. So up next, we have the transporter. Transporter, believe it or not, is the strongest role in S tier. Now, it's pretty funny because we all have memories and flashbacks of transporters ruining games, creating unnecessary chaos. You know, Vigilante's gonna shoot someone, transporter moves him, gets the jailer killed, transports the veteran, gets everyone killed, and so on and so forth. Make no mistake, guys, a transporter, when we look at the power level of the role alone, right, what can the transporter do? Number 1, you have unlimited usages for your ability. Number 2, you cannot be role blocked. Number 3, you can protect yourself by moving yourself around, right? It has 3 of those innate abilities. You can move 2 people, switch their places around throughout the night. Why is this so powerful? Because you can essentially make the Mafia kill themselves every single night. You can make them attack the witch, attack the executioner, attack the Godfather, kill the random Mafias off, kill the Mafioso off, and so on and so forth. If the town protects are dead, you can protect the jailer. If the jailer is outed and the witch and consort is still in the game, you can hide the jailer from them. You can hide the vigilante from the witch or the consort. You can protect yourself as well. You can hide the mayor if it's a doctor game and there's no bodyguard to be on them. Overall, very powerful role, and it's pretty easy to confirm your existence. Transporter is stronger than a vigilante because a vigilante relies on their 3 bullets. They have limited usages. And like we said earlier, vigilante can be witched, transporter cannot be witched, and you can kill. You have a lot of offensive abilities and you have a lot of defensive abilities. A good transporter can carry pretty much every single game if they play their role correctly. It's very hard though, but they can do it. We've all seen the clutchest moments in game is when the transporter is successful and brings back a completely lost game. Transporter, without a doubt, top of S tier. So up next, we have the Investigator. So I would say Investigator is a pretty average town investigative role. It's not as strong as a BG, Doctor, Forger. It's not as weak as anything in C tier or D tier. It's just pretty average, right? You get your investigative results, you post them, and that's basically it. You can find evils, you can confirm townies. If you find a mafia, they can still survive, because let's say, you know, you find the mafioso, vigilante, veteran, mafioso, ambusher. They just say, oh, I'm Vig, and then they can still survive through that, right? The power of the role more so comes out from catching people who claim outside of their investigative results, or people who are kind of like, for example, if no spies post during the day, and then you find someone as spy, blackmailer, jailer, and the jailer is outed or dead. So you can kind of deduce that that person is a blackmailer. That's where the power of investigator comes from. I would say average investigative role. It's pretty solid overall. So up next, we have jailer. Now, honestly, nothing really needs to be said about this one. I think we can all 110% agree, goes straight into S+. It is the strongest role in the game by far, and nothing is even close. You have 3 executions. You can kill immune roles. You can execute the executioner, the GF, the witch. You can rollblock anyone who's jailed. You can question them. Town trusts you. You can lead town. You can kind of do whatever you want when you're a jailer. A great jailer, 99% of the time, will carry the game, and a bad jailer will kind of lose the game. Jailer, definitely the strongest role. It is S+ without a doubt. So up next, we have the janitor. So, I debated whether or not janitor belongs in front of Forger or behind it. I would say janitor actually belongs in front of Forger. It is better than the Forger. Why? If there's a spy in the game, the Forger gets counted. And if there's a spy in the game, the Forger essentially becomes a janitor with 2 cleans instead of 3. More than half the time, you're going to have at least 1 spy in the game. That makes janitor, in my opinion, overall more consistent. So you get to remove 3 roles out of the game, completely clean them, wipe them off, town has no idea. And as the janitor, unlike the Forger, you actually get their role and you can know what it is, so you can claim it for yourself. I would say that makes janitor stronger than the Forger overall. It's a very powerful role. A lot of deception, you remove a lot of information from town, you put a lot of pressure on them. You also hard counter the retributionists, they can't use the cleaned roles. You can do a lot of things. You can even clean the jailer night 1, claim jailer yourself, and then go on to win the game. It's not as strong as an ambusher or consort because it doesn't have that brute force power, but it is a very powerful deceptive role. So up next we have the lookout. Now, I debated, I thought a lot about this. Where does lookout belong? Is it in B tier? Is it in A tier? I think we can all agree it's in A. Reason why is because if someone asks for a TP/lookout on night 1, lookout goes on them, confirms the town protects. Even if they haven't confirmed the town protects, at the very least they can confirm visiting roles, and that information alone is very strong. A lookout who plays correctly will establish their credibility on day 2 by going on the TP/lookout request and then having those correct visits. And then on night 2, if they can anticipate who the mafia or which will go on next, they can easily find the killer, get him lynched without even being accused of being an executioner because they have that established credibility from night 1. It's stronger than investigator. Having lookouts in the game that are proven puts a lot of pressure on evils and they can't really maneuver the way they'd normally be able to. Definitely goes into A tier, very powerful role, and it sits below the TP roles because town protectives, they have that brute force ability where Bodyguard can remove someone from the game. Doctor can just straight up prevent a killing. Lookout can witness a killing, but sometimes, let's say you lose majority, right? Yeah, you've witnessed the killing, but you've lost majority anyway. You can't really do anything. So I would say sits solidly in A tier, stronger than an invest, but I would say weaker than a BG. Now up next, we have Mafioso. So Mafioso, poor Mafioso. we spoke a lot of shit about this role. when they were modifying the ranked role list, and when they removed it from the game, we realized how bad it actually was. Mafioso will never be trash tier. It will always be a C tier. It's not as strong as the Godfather. It's basically the GF who's not immune, who also can't make their own decisions for the most part because you rely on the GF, but it is not trash. Mafioso is a necessity in the game. If the Godfather gets role blocked, the Mafioso is needed. It's kind of hard to rank this role. You just have to put it in C tier because it's not as good as the GF, and the GF is average. If you get found by an invest, you're kind of dead. Vigilantes will shoot you. You're not immune. You don't have the luxury of kind of being a bit more openly evil as GF to attract attention. You kind of have to be more hidden because you can get shot, you can get scum red, you can get found by the sheriff, and so on and so forth. So up next we have the Disguiser. Now Disguiser, honestly, when they buffed this role, and before it used to be complete trash, when they buffed this role, we thought it was going to be pretty damn good. Honestly, I haven't really seen it. I've played a lot of ranked games this season. I have not seen results from the Disguiser. Let me know if you guys have seen it. This is my experience. I would say Disguiser sits in front of Framer, but below Mafioso. Now, why do I say this? Because I know people say, yeah, like, the Disguiser can counter the Spy. Honestly, not really, because let's say the Disguiser gets killed later on in the game. The Spy can look back on their night 1 visits and pretty much see which one the Mafia is. The Disguiser basically shows one of their Mafia being visited on night 1 if they disguise one of their Mafias, essentially. So, yes, they can also fool the lookout and sheriffs and town investigatives. I honestly have never seen it. I haven't seen it in a single game, the Disguiser pulling anything like that off. It is a very fringe scenario. In most cases, you're not going to see it. In most cases, the Disguiser is going to claim Town Protect. They're probably going to go on the Jailer, right? And they're going to claim Doctor because their investigative result is Doctor Disguiser. They do what the Framer does, but they can do it a bit better than the Framer, because if the Framer gets checked, Framer, Vampire, Jester comes up. If Disguiser gets checked, it's Dr. Disguiser, right? I would say C tier. It just, I don't see results. It's not as strong as a Blackmailer. It's not as strong as a Consig. Definitely not here. Definitely not here. So I would say it has to sit in C tier. It's not complete trash like Hypno, but it's still pretty trash. Honestly, these three you can argue all belong in trash. I just give the sympathy vote, and I say they go up here. These placements can be debated. Let me know what you think of this. So up next, we have the Mayor. So the Mayor, definitely S tier, and I would say it sits firmly behind Vigilante, behind Transporter. Now, we all know how powerful the Mayor is. Once you reveal, you've instantly confirmed yourself, you've removed the town support slot. If there's a couple of random town supports dead or confirmed, you've essentially immediately taken away another random town slot. You get 3 votes, you can lead town. However, it is not as strong as the Vigilante or the Transporter. Reason why is because during the night you can't do anything, and you still can't really do anything on your own. In the early game especially, you need town to still listen to you, right? You can be the greatest mayor in the world, but if you have a stubborn town who doesn't listen to you, you're not going to get anything done, you're not going to be able to carry. Although it is a powerful role, it isn't as strong as a Vigilante or Transporter who can take matters into their own hands and solo carry a game. Mayor still at the mercy of other players. So up next we have the Medium. So Medium is pretty trash. I would say Medium is in C tier. Just overall, everyone knows Medium sucks. As a Medium, you should be claiming on day 1. Reason being is because if you claim later, people probably won't trust you. You're the weakest town support role. You're not as strong as a Retry, Escort, Transporter, Mayor. And yeah, you can get information from dead roles, but it's a very low impact role. You're probably not going to be able to solo carry a game with the abilities of a Medium who all they do is speak to dead chat. And if they're dead, like honestly, they're better off dead on night 1 because you can still seance the Jailer, use your other ability, which works when you're dead. And that's basically it. I would say this is a C tier role. I would say the role you want most dead night 1 is the Medium. Very straightforward, nothing needs to be said. Although if it's a double Medium game, it's kind of cool but it still works if one of the medium's dead, and then there's another one speaking to them, and then the medium can just seance the jailer the next night. So up next, we have the Retributionist. Now, this role is actually very, very difficult to place. It sits here, but this changes, right? So night 1, you can't do anything. Night 2, vast majority of the times, you can't do anything meaningful unless a vigilante is dead or, you know, an investigator or something. Basically, the Retributionist gets stronger depending on the roles that are dead, right? But the problem is, if important and powerful roles are dying, you're probably losing the game anyway. I've seen some very clutch moments where a Retributionist has used a dead vigilante to come back and win the game for us, but for every time I've seen a clutch Retributionist play, 9 other times, they don't really do anything, they kind of just sit there. It's not as strong as B tier roles, it's not as consistent or as strong as an escort or an investigator. It's definitely a solid C tier role, below average. So up next, we have the Sheriff. Sheriff, definitely C tier, the worst town investigative in the game. As a Sheriff, if you find someone suspicious on night 1 and you post that information on day 2, chances are you get yourself lynched first before the suspicious person. Reason being is because this current role list has a confirmed executioner in the game. People are always weary of the Sheriff claims. Sheriff is also very easy to fake for evils, people don't really trust it. If you come out day 3, finding someone as suspicious, town's just gonna think that you're likely the executioner trying to get your win. They're probably not going to trust you. Mafia can easily say it's executioner. The guy pushing you can claim a role and say he's executioner. And that's basically what you do. You're not as strong as an invest because invest can, they have more trust overall through their results. Definitely not as strong as a lookout. I would say it sits in C tier. Obviously, it's not trash, but it is definitely a C tier role. So up next, we have Spy. Now, Spy is extremely powerful. It's stronger than Invest, and I would say we can debate whether or not it's stronger than Lookout or weaker. I would say it's stronger. Reason being is because if there's a Spy in the game, you essentially counter like half of the random Mafia in the game. When there's a Spy in the game, all of the random Mafia, or most of the random Mafia, have to change the way they play the game. They have to alter the way they play. Hypnotist can't really do their thing anymore. Framer can't really go around framing people. Disguiser, you know, if you try disguising night 1 and you get killed, they're going to check your night 1 visits and they're going to figure out who the Mafia is through that. Blackmailer can't really blackmail. In most cases, they still can, but in most cases, they probably won't. Consigs can't claim investigator, and you know, if they go around checking more and more townies, they're just confirming more and more people to not be Marth, right? Janitor doesn't get counted by them. Forger gets half counted by them. Ambusher kinda gets counted by them if they don't get a kill on the night that they sit on someone. So Spy is very powerful. Basically, passively, it's just very strong. Evils can fake Spy pretty easily, but passively, Spy just alters the way evils play the game. All the random Mafia can't maneuver the way they normally would be able to. Also, keep in mind that there are 2 immune roles in this role list, not including the GF, and there's a very big chance that Mafia attack one of them on night 1 or night 2. If that happens, the Spy can out, and that immune person is essentially dead. So up next, we have the Veteran. So I would say the Veteran sits right here. It sits behind Sheriff, and it sits in front of Retributionist. Now, honestly, Veteran is another hard role to place. You could even argue that it's in B tier, right? The problem with Veteran is you rely on town actually reading the chat to make sure that you don't solo lose the game as this role. We've all seen the Veteran make a sick bait, kill off 2 Mafia, you know, the Janitor, the Mafioso, and get a sweet win, right? Just win the game for town. But for every game we've seen the Veteran do that, we've seen 9 times where the freaking Veteran completely loses the game with either a bad bait or with townies not paying attention. Now, it's a very powerful role. It actually has a lot of power, however, you don't have the control of a vigilante or a transporter or a jailer. You're reliant on town not having a blindfold on while they are playing the game. You could be the greatest veteran player in the world with the greatest baits in the world. However, if town isn't paying attention and they walk into you, you're still probably going to lose the game. So I would say it sits in C tier. We can argue that it's here, but can we say that the veteran is truly as consistent as something like the escort or the investigator? I would say no. I would say veteran is C tier, honestly, and if veteran dies on night 1, it's probably better off. You don't want your TIs dying early, you don't want your town protects dying early, or your mayors and your powerful town supports. You're probably going to be okay with the veteran dying early. So I would say it sits in C tier. Some may argue B tier, I would say C tier. So finally, we're coming towards the end. We have Witch. I would say Witch definitely sits right here. So Witch being a confirmed role in this role list basically puts so much pressure on the town. Jailer, it is basically the main reason why the Jailer can't openly claim Jailer on day 1. You have the confirmed Witch to prevent them from executing. Vigilantes are always terrified of coming out. Sometimes a fake claim. You're not as strong as an ambusher because, again, an ambusher can just straight up kill someone, remove them from the game. Witch still kind of has to find the Vigilante. They have to figure out if someone's a veteran who's alerting to send someone into them. Essentially, they can role block like the consort can. However, they have more uses than the consort because they can control townies. You know, you can remove the town protects. You can put a town protect on your mafia, prevent them from getting killed. You can prevent the Jailer from executing. You can make the Vigilante shoot a townie. So, Witch is very strong. Not as strong as an ambusher, stronger than consort because it does everything a consort does and more. And the role is also immune too. I don't know why these two roles are here. They're kind of irrelevant. Executioner Jester is irrelevant here. These roles, they don't have a power level. Why? Because they kind of do their own thing and they're kind of just obstacles in the game rather than like actual roles which are trying to do shit. Let me know what you guys think about this role list. Obviously, we can debate some of this stuff. I would say this is pretty solid though for the most part. I would say the most debatable things here are Veteran, possibly Retributionist, but I say this sits here firmly. I would say Hypnotist, you know, we can argue that Framer actually is worse. We can argue that Disguise is trash or maybe Disguise is a little bit better. I would definitely say it's not as good as Blackmailer though. Leave a like if you did enjoy the video. If you would like me to make more, let me know. I will make more. Have a discussion in the comments. I'll see you all in the next video.